Yeah. Mondays, and there's no Sunday morning meetings anymore.
Good morning, everyone. We have a special guest with us this morning, Brooke Lehrman. She's a mom, attorney, accomplished state legislator, and community advocate. She's running for comptroller to champion policies and pursue partnerships that ignite economic development, equality, and resilience. Rooted in a commitment to the power of collective action and engagement, she knows that together we can exceed our expectations of government and one another. So let me turn it over to you, Brooke, to talk about your initiatives.
Wonderful. Well, good morning. Margie, thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it. Appreciate all the work that the Rockville Chamber does to support its members. Love your new logo and website and all the great work that you've been doing. It's really exciting to see. So, yep, I'm Brooke Lehrman. I am a civil rights and disability rights attorney. I am a mom, and I'm a state legislator, and I'm running to be Maryland's next state comptroller. Really excited about the run. And today just thought I'd talk for a few minutes about, the work that I've been doing, who I am, so that you and your members know a little bit more about me. And I just want to say at the start, though, I am always, always, always open for feedback, ideas, and conversations. I think if you were to talk to my constituents, you would find that I'm extremely responsive. That's part of who I am, and would love to hear from you, your members, anytime about the challenges and opportunities that you see in Rockville. So my email is just brooke@brookelehrman.com, and welcome hearing from you and anybody else at any time. So I actually grew up in Montgomery County. I'm a Walt Whitman High School graduate, but went away to college at Dartmouth, worked at AmeriCorps. I helped start a nonprofit where I was the first development director. It's a group that's going strong and expanded to be a multi-state nonprofit since I left. And then I went to law school, and I found my way back to Maryland. I had a federal law clerkship in Baltimore, where my husband and I settled. We live in Fells Point with our 2 children. And after a few years living in Baltimore and working at a law firm, I got quite frustrated with what I saw around Baltimore. The bus not showing up on time, sort of schools not nearly what we should expect, for our kids to go to, and decided that I wanted to do more, more than just be on boards and my neighborhood association. So I decided to throw my hat in the ring and run for state delegate, and knocked on 14,000 doors, had lots of meet and greets, and I won. And I was the top vote getter in both 2014 and 2018 when I was reelected. Now, my district is one that I think you would all appreciate. I represent every neighborhood around the water in Baltimore City. So that means I have 3 certified Main Street districts: Highlandtown, Fells Point, and Federal Hill. I also represent all of downtown Baltimore and the Port of Baltimore. So I have, from 1,000-person businesses to 1-person businesses, toy shops and restaurants, and to financial services opportunities. So I represent a huge variety of businesses in Baltimore, and I've really loved being their partner and advocate. My husband and I live in Fells Point. We love being around the business community and the small business liveliness of the area. And when COVID hit, we were actually the first area in the city to get our restaurants outdoors and to move outdoors, because I was able to partner with folks to help push it through and make it happen, and think big about how we could eliminate barriers that existed to create more opportunity for our retailers, our restaurants, our bars, and everybody. So I've loved being a delegate. I've loved partnering with the Montgomery County delegation as well. I'm really thrilled to have the support in my run for comptroller of Senator Kagan, Delegates Gilchrist, Blakovich-Carr, and Barve, District 17, as well as several city council members of Rockville, the mayor, and others. And really excited to be running for comptroller so I can bring my experience working with businesses, representing businesses, cutting red tape, and being an advocate to the state level, right, to the comptroller's office. I think, a lot of people don't know what the comptroller does. So I like to remind people, sort of three quick things. First and foremost, the comptroller is one of only 3 independently elected statewide offices, right? We've got the governor, the attorney general, and the comptroller. And it's really the elected CFO of the state, helping oversee the comptroller's, this vast office. It does procurement and taxes, but also being a statewide voice, right? A statewide voice for small businesses, a statewide voice to make sure people understand the small businesses and our businesses create jobs. They're the backbone of our economy, and that we want to make sure that we're investing in the things that allow small businesses to grow and thrive, right? Whether they're small businesses or scalable businesses. I represent a number of incubators in my district and have worked with them to help make sure that we're bringing in investment and able to scale these businesses to create jobs. So that's a perspective I'm excited to bring to the comptroller's office, to be a voice for our small businesses. Number 2, the comptroller sits on a number of very important state boards, including the State Retirement and Pension Board and our Board of Public Works. Now, the State Retirement and Pension Board, I actually chair the Joint Committee on Pensions right now. So I have a lot of experience working with our pension system, almost 700 or almost $70 billion for almost 500,000 state retirees. There's so much that we can be doing to make sure that our pension system is invested wisely, that we diversify the investment firms that are holding our assets, and that we think about, is there an opportunity to really invest locally? There are about 20 states, more than 20 states now, that actually invest a portion of their pension fund in their own local business opportunities, of course, still being a good fiduciary and getting good returns. That's something I'm really interested in Maryland, to make sure that we're thinking through, is there a way to invest some of our pension dollars in local businesses, right? In our local firms, so that we can create more economic activity and opportunity here in the state. And then, of course, the Board of Public Works, right? So important. It really holds the power of the purse in the state of Maryland. And I'm really excited to make sure that we are being transparent about how the Board of Public Works is operating, that we're holding ourselves accountable, and that we're being a good fiscal steward. We have an amazing opportunity to learn from what's worked during the pandemic and supporting our businesses, and what didn't work, and make sure that we're putting those lessons to good use in the Board of Public Works. And also, to make sure that we're investing locally, that we're hiring Maryland businesses to ensure that we get really best value for our dollars. It's not always about lowest cost, right? It's about best value. And that really means hiring locally, supporting our firms here, supporting women-owned firms, Black-owned firms, our immigrant-owned firms, really building wealth in the state of Maryland with our tax dollars. And then finally, you all know it, but sorry to remind you, I'm running to be your next state tax collector. But in that spot too, there's so much that we can do, I believe, to make the comptroller's office even more seamless, to modernize the office, to make sure that it's really working with our small businesses, have a small business portal that can provide small businesses with a single site for tracking your good standing with the state of Maryland, as well as a history of paid and outstanding taxes, debts, fines, fees, anything related information. So I think there's so much that we can do to really modernize the office and make it easier for people to do and companies to do business in the state of Maryland. And that's one of my goals, is really making it easier to do business here. So at the end of the day, the comptroller's office is really the first office that sees the numbers that tell the story of how Maryland families and businesses are doing. And I'm very excited to be able to be an advocate to make sure that those numbers look good for all of us. So I'm excited after work to, over the past 8 years at the state level on public transit. I formed the Transit Caucus, working with Delegate Corman and others to make sure we're supporting WMATA, the metro system, as well as MTA. I've worked on ensuring that we created an Office of Statewide Broadband to make sure that people around the state have access to good, high-speed available broadband. Worked on the blueprint for Maryland's future. I was on the Appropriations Committee for 5 years, so understand how our state budget works. So excited to bring this knowledge that I've gained and understanding of the Comptroller's office to really get things done for small businesses at the state level. So I'll conclude just by saying, we have an incredible opportunity in 2022. There has not been an open seat for state comptroller since 1998. It has been a long time. And we are going to see more federal money coming into the state of Maryland than at any other time in our lifetime. And we have one opportunity to make sure that we have the systems in place and the people in place to ensure that that money gets to where it needs to go to make generational change, to really build generational wealth, to prepare for climate change, and to support our small businesses in creating good paying jobs here in Maryland. So I'm excited to bring, my work on the Appropriations Committee, on the Pension Board, supporting and representing small businesses for nearly a decade, and as an attorney, bring that perspective as an advocate to the Comptroller's office, creating an office that's present and proactive and working with all of you to make sure that we're building a better and more inclusive Maryland. So thanks so much for having me on today. Delighted to take a couple questions. And thanks, I know you're recording this so we can play it again, but really wonderful to be here with all of you, and I look forward to working together.
Thank you so much, Brooke. You can unmute yourself to ask her any questions. I really like the small business portal. That's been one of the issues that a lot of companies, they don't know where they are in the procurement process, and it's like, what do I have to do? They're waiting to open a new business and they're stuck and they don't know where they're stuck and no one gets back to them. So that would be huge.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think there's so much that we can do to make the procurement process more seamless in Maryland as well. I've worked with a number of businesses over the years who don't know where the hang up is or the holdup is in being paid. And they're waiting for payment and they don't know if it's with the agency or the comptroller's office. So I step in and I figure it out and unravel it, but you shouldn't need to reach out to your state delegate or your state senator, right? You should be able to just know. And actually Senator Kagan and I this year have legislation to require creation of an online payment portal so that you can see and anybody who's contracting can see where their money is in the system. And then I have legislation this year actually to create a private letter ruling process. And we're one of the few states in the country where you cannot get a private letter ruling on what taxes you owe, which is a real problem because what it means is that businesses then may not be paying the right amount. They have to hire expensive tax attorneys to figure it out. And in the end, if they don't pay the right amount, the state can come after them for money. So we need to sort of nip all that in the bud and have a private letter ruling process so that businesses can know what they owe. And I have legislation to do just that this year.
I have one other question and then I'll turn it over to birthday girl Eileen. Eileen, happy birthday.
Thank you.
How come they tax people I think it's if you make 200,000 or more, you're taxed the same as a millionaire? Am I saying that right?
So we have just a few different levels of taxation in the state of Maryland, and it's changed recently on where they hit. But yeah, we do just have a few different levels in the state of Maryland on where the level of taxation and the percentage. You can index more. I mean, theoretically, we could pass legislation to allow for further indexing or further segmenting of who's charged for what. But in the state of Maryland, that's where we are right now. Yep. Eileen, happy birthday. Mine is in a week. So yay, February birthdays.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
One is along the same line, pretty much on the same line as Margie, but are we even thinking about making Maryland one of the tax-free retirement income states like Florida and Texas and a lot of the other states? I know that everybody I know, as soon as they retire, they leave the state. They go somewhere else where their money is not taxed. Are we seriously thinking about that at all, or is it just not something we're not going to do?
Yep, that's a great question and one that I get a lot. So what I will say to that is that I want to make Maryland and do everything that we can to use the data to help us pass legislation to make Maryland a state where people choose to age, right? By 2030, more than 1 in 4 Marylanders will be 60 or older. And most will be healthy and will want to live in community settings where they can have an active lifestyle. And, but those who are in need of care face difficult decisions regarding, obtaining the help they need, whether at home, with family, or in long-term care facilities. I have a mother who is in a Brightview right now in Montgomery County, who has Parkinson's with dementia, right? I don't know where we would be, frankly, without private long-term care insurance. So there are real challenges. I believe in Maryland. I don't know that we can ever compete with Florida or Arizona, but we should be competitive with Pennsylvania and Delaware. And, so what I've talked with many folks around the state about is establishing a commission to explore the creation of new tax incentives to support a wide range of ideas for seniors, including incentives to build affordable senior housing, to lower or eliminate taxes on pensions and retirement, and to incentivize private long-term care insurance. I'm sure there are many other ideas out there, but there are so many of these ideas. I think it's really important that we drill down on what's being offered in other states and what our seniors will need over the coming years to determine where we will be able to provide the most impact. And that includes both hearing anecdotal data from people around the state and also looking at the numbers, right? And understanding the financial data. And of course, one of the exciting things about the Comptroller's office to me is that it is the hub of all financial data in the state. And so we can use that data to help inform our policymaking procedures. So I'm excited to be able to do that. So 100%, absolutely, we have to make sure that we are exploring this, and it will be one of the first things that I set up. So thank you.
Along the same lines as Margie, and I had just working with a couple years ago with Nancy Cox to try and change this, but we haven't changed the levels that you have of the different. So after, and it was $150,000. After a couple has $150,000, nothing's deductible anymore. You get no tax breaks from Maryland. And that hasn't been changed in at least 10 years. It's incredible. And when you compare our income 10 years ago to today, things have changed a lot. So if you would please consider that in your
yeah, certainly our tax brackets. Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly something, again, that I think we can use data to drive policy making. So, the Comptroller doesn't set those rates, the General Assembly does, but it's certainly something the Comptroller can look at the data and see where we are now versus then to see if we should change tax brackets. And I think here it's, I think the highest one is if you're over $250,000, then you pay, 12.7, I think it's like $12,000 plus some percentage, I want to say 5 and change of the excess of that is your Maryland tax. So absolutely, we should be looking at our tax brackets and whether they should change.
And my last question is one of ignorance. So the Comptroller, does that mean that you are in charge of investing the state's money so that we get the most interest for it, or it works better for us? And if it's yes, if the answer is yes, maybe ask this, but what are your qualifications for that? Because you're a lawyer and not an accountant for a financial person.
Yeah, no, great question. So the Comptroller has actually always been an attorney. We've never had an accountant. Peter Francho's an attorney as well, and he was on the Appropriations Committee just like me. I bring to bear the fact that I actually chair the Joint Committee on Pensions. So I have a great understanding of how our pension system works. The Comptroller and the Treasurer are not the ones actually doing the investing. We are fiduciaries who provide advice. So we sit on the Board of Trustees as well as several other members of the Board of Trustees of our pension system. And then there are investment managers, both in-house and out-of-house, as well as a chief investment officer that the pension system has. Our chief investment officer has been there for, I want to say 6 or 7 years now. Andy, I work with him all the time on the Joint Committee on Pensions, and does a good job. But at the end of the day, it's the Board of Trustees who are also fiduciaries who are helping to oversee and understand and make sure that we're investing in a way that works for Maryland. It's important to have a good understanding of our pension system. After 8 years serving on the Pension Oversight Committee, I certainly have a very good understanding of our pension system and what's working and what's not. And it's important to understand what other states are doing too, and where the private sector is going. So for instance, this year, I'll be working with the Joint Committee on Pensions to introduce legislation declaring that climate risk is investment risk, because that is what we are seeing. And we need to make sure that our long-term investment strategies take climate risk into account. And we're seeing the private sector move that way quite quickly. And yet public pensions are not being quite as, are not moving quite as quickly. So in Maryland, we're saying, to be a good fiduciary, you have to take climate risk into account. So those are the kinds of trends that the Board of Trustees can make sure that we're keeping an eye on in working with our chief investment officer. Sure. Any other questions I can answer?
Lynn or Andrea? No?
I just
No
don't
questions.
know
That was
enough
very,
about.
very helpful. I mean, it's a good overview and reminder, and I always like a little plug for attorneys, actually have a wide variety of thought processes and how boards work and fiduciary duties. I think it's always good to remind people that we're not just fighting in court. It's more comprehensive. That's good.
Right. And we're very analytical.
Yes, very analytical. Yeah.
Andrea, did you have something to say?
I don't know enough about the comptroller's job. Actually, I was listening in to learn more about you, Brooke, and also about the job. So thank you for sharing that information. And I will study a lot more between now and June. And,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. And I hope that everybody on will visit my website. It's just www.brookelehrman.com. If you go to my priorities page, you'll see a whole section on what does the comptroller do, as well as a policy agenda that has a section on focusing on procurement and a section focusing on small businesses, as well as sections on how do we tackle the racial wealth divide in our state, what should we be doing for our pension system, and a section on tax administration. So these were sections, these policy agendas were I worked with people from around the state to put them together, taking into account ideas and opportunities that exist all over. And I'm always open to hearing your ideas, thoughts, and strategies as well. This is an incredibly important election. It will be a very competitive election, and I certainly hope I can earn your support. So thank you.
Thank you so much for reaching out and talking to us today. Thank you so much. Everybody have a great day.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.